I grew up Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I wore the plain dress, spoke Pennsylvania Dutch before I ever spoke proper English, and I watched women in my community have baby after baby, year after year, and never once say out loud that they were struggling. Not once. That silence, that is what this video is about. I left the community when I was 18. My name is Eliza, and today I want to talk about something that almost nobody talks about when they talk about Amish life, and that is what happens to an Amish woman's mind after she gives birth. Because postpartum depression is real. It happens to Amish women just as much as it happens to anyone else. But the way it gets handled, or not handled, inside that community is something most people on the outside have never heard about. So let me tell you. First, you have to understand what childbirth looks like in an Amish home. Most women where I grew up had their babies at home with a midwife. No hospital, no epidural, no pain medication. You labored at home, you delivered at home, and you were expected to be grateful because a baby is a blessing from God, and pain is just part of the process. That is genuinely what you are told. Pregnancy was never even publicly announced. No shower, no countdown, no celebration. It was private, humble, and quiet. And after the baby came, there was this period called lying in. Basically, the women of the community would come to the house. They would cook, they would clean, they would take care of the older children so the mother could rest and recover and bond with the new baby. That part was actually beautiful. That community support system, it was real and it was strong. But here is where it gets complicated, because postpartum depression affects roughly 1 in 5 mothers. And an Amish woman is not exempt from that statistic just because she lives simply or believes deeply. Her hormones shift the same way. Her sleep deprivation is the same, or honestly worse, because she might already have 4, 5, 6 other kids under 10. She has no car to drive herself somewhere, no phone to call a friend, no internet to even look up what she is feeling. And the thing that makes it even harder is the culture itself. Mental illness of any kind carries a quiet shame in Amish communities. There is no word in Pennsylvania Dutch that cleanly translates to depression. And if you are sad after having a baby that is supposed to be a blessing, the assumption, spoken or unspoken, is that something might be spiritually wrong with you. So, what did these women actually do? Let me break it down because it was not one single thing. The first and most common response was prayer. A struggling mother was encouraged to pray more, read scripture more, lean harder into her faith. The belief was that God was in control of healing, and that turning to Him was the first, and sometimes only necessary step. Studies that have looked at Amish communities in Ohio and Pennsylvania found that nearly all Amish people engage in spiritual practices as part of their health approach, and prayer was at the top of that list. For some women, this genuinely helped. Faith can be an anchor when everything feels like it is falling apart. I am not dismissing that. The second thing that happened was herbal and natural remedies. The Amish have a very strong tradition of using supplements and home remedies over prescription medication. Research on Amish communities in Ohio showed that nearly 90% used some form of natural supplement regularly, and over half used herbal or homemade remedies for health issues. Things like chamomile, valerian root, and other calming herbs were used. Women would share these remedies with each other, passed down from mothers and grandmothers. The community trusted natural healing far more than they trusted anything a pharmaceutical company made. Prescription antidepressants were deeply distrusted, seen as too strong, too unnatural, and too tied to outside medical systems that many Amish viewed with suspicion. The third response was community involvement. If a woman was visibly struggling, the women around her would step in more. More meals brought, more help with chores, more visits. This was not therapy, obviously, but having someone sit with you when you are barely functioning, someone who understands your world because they live in the same world, that meant something. The problem was that if a woman suffered quietly, the community could not see it. And a lot of Amish women are very, very good at suffering quietly because they have been taught their whole lives to suppress negative emotions, put their family first, and not make a show of their struggles. Now, here is something most people do not know exists, and I think it is genuinely important. There is a real residential program called Mother's Hope. It is run by Springhaven Counseling Center, and it is located in Ohio. It opened in 2021 specifically to serve plain Anabaptist women, which includes Amish, who are dealing with postpartum depression and anxiety. What makes this program different from anything else is that mothers are allowed to keep their babies with them while they receive professional mental health treatment. They live in a home-like setting, staffed by both licensed therapists and Amish and plain Mennonite women. They attend group therapy twice a day, individual therapy twice a week, and they see a psychiatric professional once a week. The whole structure is designed to feel familiar. There are meals, devotions, walks, sewing projects. It is intensive treatment wrapped inside something that looks and feels like an Amish home. The testimonials from women who went through that program are something else. One woman wrote that she thought she was not that bad off, that surely she could just shake it off. She did not admit she needed help until she felt no more joy in living, could not eat, could not sleep. And even then, the thing that finally convinced her to go was being told she could bring her baby. The shame was enormous. Leaving her husband, leaving her other children, to go get help for something that felt like a personal and spiritual failure. But she went, and she says now that it saved her. That shame is the part that I want to sit with for a second, because I lived inside that world. I know that shame. Mental health struggles in Amish communities are still widely seen as something you push through, something you pray through, something you keep private. Research backs this up too. Multiple studies have found that Amish people with depression are significantly reluctant to seek treatment because seeking outside help feels like a betrayal of the community's values and sometimes even like a lack of faith. One study described it as boundary maintenance, the idea that going to an outside counselor or therapist crosses a line that the community does not want crossed. And yet, things are slowly shifting. More Amish communities are becoming aware of programs like Mother's Hope and Spring Haven. Some church leaders are cautiously endorsing professional counseling, at least the culturally sensitive kind. There is a book circulating in Plain communities now called Holding Out Hope, co-written by both doctors and Amish and Mennonite people, that tries to explain mental health in a way that does not feel threatening to faith. Change is slow, but it is happening. Here is the truth that I carry with me now that I have been outside that world for years. The lying in period, the meals brought, the women showing up. That was real support and it was meaningful. The faith, the prayer, the community bonds, they protected a lot of women from falling entirely. But they were never going to be enough for every woman, in every case. Postpartum depression is not a spiritual failure. It is not a lack of gratitude for your baby. It is a medical reality, and every woman, whether she wears a prayer covering or not, deserves to be seen and to be helped. If you know someone going through this, in any community, any culture, please share this video, because the silence does more damage than any of us realize. I am Eliza. I grew up Amish in Pennsylvania, and I know what it costs to stay quiet.